I'm Mike Uyak. I love to try new things, and I've had culinary adventures all around the world as well as right at home. I've had really wonderful food, as well as some really horrible food. I'd like to share some of my adventures with you, and we'll see if I have what it takes to fix whatever goes wrong. This is Recipe Redemption. Greetings and salutations, Redeemers, and welcome to this episode of Recipe Redemption. And say hi to Dobby. Ah, gotcha. Just so you know he's real, here's Dobby. Hi, buddy. We'll see how long he tolerates this. If it'll be 30 seconds, we'll see. Anyway, wanted to talk today about convenience. Something that Dobby is not experiencing at the moment. Okay, fine. Down you go. Most of the recipes that I feature on this channel are from mid-century, mid-20th century, and they're designed around convenience. The idea that you can take ingredients that you have in your pantry, supplemented perhaps with a protein that you throw in from the grocery store, but generally speaking, it's all canned or packaged or dried stuff that you then throw together into something hopefully delicious. And there were a lot of recipes that that worked really, really well, and generally in the realm of casseroles and things, that you could actually just take canned ingredients and throw them together into a casserole dish or a pot, cook them for a little while through whatever means, and you would have something delicious. But I would say that in the modern age, if you want to call this the modern age, in the 21st century, we have improved canning processes, which means that unlike in, let's say, the 30s and 40s, the canned food that we have comes out of the can fresher looking, fresher tasting, better preserved, and just overall a generally better product. That's one thing. Two, there's a wider variety of foods that are available from all around the world that are not only of a higher quality, but also give you a wider variety of ingredients with which to work. If all you have are canned peas, canned carrots, canned broth, and dry noodles, and that's pretty much it, like canned tuna, and that's it, well, your options are pretty limited. But now there's all sorts of stuff coming from all over the world, and just because it has to ship from all around the world, it has to be canned. So you can stock your pantry with a lot of pretty exotic stuff these days, compared to what you had 50, 60, 70 years ago. So I would say it is possible to create not only a passable and delicious dish, but actually kind of a fancy dish from stuff that you pull from your cabinet. Your pantry can hold treasures these days, and I want to see if I can adapt one of our favorite recipes. And I don't remember where we got it from, but we started cooking this, I would say, at least a good 15 years ago. Might even be closer to 20 at this point. And it's a recipe that I don't recall where we got it from. And at this point, there are numerous variations on this recipe on the internet, so I don't know which one was first. I really can't give credit. But it's for salmon Puttanesca. Now, what is Puttanesca? Let's talk about that for a moment. It This is an adaptation of spaghetti alla puttanesca, which is, I hesitate to call it a classic Italian dish because it was really invented in like the 1920s, 1930s in Naples, I believe, if I remember correctly, but somewhere in southern Italy. Um, and so, it's not classic in it being hundreds of years old or anything. But it's a very popular and very, very simple dish to make. And that's why I wanted to start with this because even if you're a bachelor, even if you don't have a whole lot of skill in cooking, it doesn't take a whole lot to make this dish. And it's delicious and it is actually impressive if people who don't know how to cook try it. So, puttanesca is a sauce that is tomato based, but it is heavily, heavily flavored with Kalamata olives, anchovies, lots of garlic, capers, and red pepper flake. And that's pretty much it. You can throw some other spices in there if you want, but you really don't need to. You don't need to add any salt because the anchovies are going to do that for you in spades, as well as the Kalamata olives. They do have a certain amount of brine that comes with them that brings the seasoning with it. So you don't have to add any salt to this. Um, the anchovies bring an umami flavor, as well as the olives for that matter. The olives and the olive oil that you use bring a fattiness to it that gives it a rich mouth feel that kind of coats your mouth. The capers give it just that little bit of a vegetal and a little bit of a sort of a pickly bite to it. Obviously, the red pepper flakes bring a nice little bit of heat to it. You don't want to add a whole lot. It's not a super spicy dish, but you do want to add a little bit. But it's a really, really simple sauce to throw onto your pasta. I'm using linguine today because that's what I got, and I like linguine. It's typically spaghetti, but it can be pretty much anything that'll grab a hold of sauce. Um, all you do is just saute the garlic for 30 seconds in hot oil just until it starts to color a little and becomes really fragrant. Then you throw everything else in and just let it simmer for a bit. I'd say simmer for about 20 minutes just so all the flavors can get to know each other. If you want to throw some red wine into it, you can, but otherwise, that's it. Now, I usually do the recipe salmon puttanesca pairs this with a little fillet of salmon that you just dredge in some seasoned flour and pan fry in olive oil until has a nice brown crust on it. That's it. Little bit of fresh chopped parsley, little bit of grated parmesan on top. Done. Easy. It's like a if you time things right, you start your water for your pasta boiling right away, um, and start making the sauce. If you have everything ready and you have your mise in place, 20 minutes to cook dinner, it's stupid easy. And I want to prove that it can be made as long as you have the canned or jarred ingredients on hand in your pantry. Then at any time on any given weekday, you can throw down and put this together. Now, salmon puttanesca. The salmon part is a little trickier. Obviously, salmon being perishable, extremely perishable, um, you're not going to have it sitting around for a long time just waiting for you to kind of get the mood. But instead of a fillet of salmon, what if you had canned salmon? Can we do this? Now the only thing is, okay, canned salmon's it's going to be flaky and falling apart. It's not a nice fillet. But what if we made a fish cake, a salmon cake, out of that canned salmon, some breadcrumbs, and some other ingredients that you have in your cupboard? Can we make this dish 100% from stuff that you have in the cupboard or in the fridge in the case of a couple of ingredients? Stuff that you already have on hand and will always have on hand. Can you make this dish the spur of the moment? You suddenly have a guest coming over. And again, you're both going to have garlic breath, so it doesn't matter. Let's just see. Can it be done?
To start our Puttanesca sauce, start with a fun amount of garlic. Chopped garlic there, and yes, I'm using jarred. No big deal. Probably about a tablespoon and a half there. This is a really garlicky sauce. And just pan fry those in some olive oil for about 30 seconds, just until it gets fragrant. Whole jar of chopped Kalamata olives, whole can of anchovy fillets, and no, I'm not cutting those up ahead of time because they'll break up in cooking. It's no big deal. Probably about 3 tablespoons worth of capers. Toss those in. I'm doing everything I can to make this a recipe that you don't really have to measure much. Couple cans of diced tomatoes, and don't bother getting like the fancy pomodoro tomatoes or anything like that. The subtleties of the really good tomatoes will be lost with this really strong sauce. Let that simmer for a little bit, and then add a tablespoon of red pepper flakes, and just let that cook and reduce a little bit, probably about 15-20 minutes, stirring occasionally, and then set to the side. In the meantime, we're going to make our salmon cakes. I've got 2 cans of canned salmon that I've kind of broken up, and 2 eggs. That's going to be our binder, along with some more of the capers. And these ones I did actually bother to chop up a little bit. And probably to those 2, probably about, I'd say a cup of breadcrumbs and some Old Bay seasoning. Probably about a teaspoon all told. I did sprinkle a little bit of kosher salt in here as well, and some lemon juice. I forgot to get an actual lemon, so yes, I'm using prepared lemon juice, and some stone ground mustard. And just stir this together just until it comes together and it's more or less homogeneous. You don't want to mush it into a paste. You still want some of the salmon to be in at least sort of discrete chunks. And I'm just kind of grabbing a fistful, like a small softball size handful of the mixture, and patting it out until it's about a ½ inch thick, and as it turns out, about 6 inches wide. If you want to make them smaller, you can, but I'm a growing boy. So form those up, looks pretty good, and throw it into a pan of hot oil. Just continue cooking your salmon cakes. Probably about 3.5 minutes to the side. Since your canned salmon is already cooked, all you're doing is heating these through so that the egg sets, and you get kind of a nice brown crust on the side. Now you can, if you want, actually bread these before frying them. I didn't bother. For plating, oh yeah, by the way, did I mention you need to boil some pasta? Yeah, boil some pasta. A nice healthy serving of the Puttanesca sauce on top of the pasta. I took some dried parsley out of my spice cupboard, and I actually rehydrated it by just soaking it in some warm water for about 5 minutes and then squeezing as much as I can out of it. Again, in keeping with as much pre-prepared or dried or canned stuff as possible. There's the obligatory Parmesan cheese that I keep on hand for pizzas, and then the salmon cakes. And yes, I'm having 2 of them. Did I mention I'm a growing boy? Garnish with a little bit more of the parsley. Obviously, fresh would be better, but there you go. And buon appetito.
So, in answer to the question, can you make salmon puttanesca from ingredients entirely waiting for you in your fridge or in your pantry without having to go to the store? Obviously, you had to go to the store to get it, but you know what I mean. The answer is yes. The salmon cake, I could probably tinker with it a little bit. I think even though the salmon is a fairly oily fish, because we're dealing with cooked salmon, it could actually benefit from a little bit more richness like in the mixture, actually stirring in a little bit of mayonnaise or something, to kind of give it a little creamier texture. I would go so the salmon. It said traditionally packed, and what that meant was with all the bones, which sucked. So avoid that. Get canned salmon that is deboned, fancy salmon, I think is what they call it. Um, but yeah, a little bit more. I think a little bit more lemon, and a little bit of like just a dollop, like maybe in and that batch maybe a tablespoon of mayonnaise. You know, like basically half a teaspoon of mayonnaise per cake, um, would give it a little bit more richness, a little bit more creamy mouthfeel. But otherwise, really, really good. The sauce, you can't really go wrong because they're just big, bold flavors that just slap you upside the face. And it's bold and it's delicious. Serve it with a nice sort of toothy red wine. Nothing too aggressive, but nothing too sweet or subtle either. So, um, yeah, a Cabernet Sauvignon is fine if you get one that's not too tannic, or Cab Franc, or even like a Merlot, would be good. Um, really fantastic, really really good stuff. Um, and having reconstituting the parsley, yeah, it's a little disappointing, but again, we're sticking to the theme of stuff that you have on hand. Would it benefit if you actually did a special grocery trip to get fresh herbs and I suppose fresh tomatoes, but really really ripe fresh tomatoes, that sort of thing, and with the actual salmon fillet instead of this canned salmon? Yes, they would taste that much better. But for a quick and easy weeknight throw together thing, 20 minutes to a half an hour to cook, hard to go wrong. So, what do you think? And do you have any other go to recipes that you like to make on a weeknight that are simple, quick, and are just stuff that you pull out of the pantry? Nothing fresh that you have to cook right away, or nothing frozen that you have to go through the trouble of defrosting. Just stuff that you can throw together, go, and in 30 minutes have food on the table. What kind of recipes do you use? I'd like to hear about them, and leave them in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, all the internet stuff, and I'll see you next time here on Recipe Redemption.